Hello, 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 and welcome. So here we are, week 2 of the first revelation, fear, right? Right? You made it. So if you are on week 2 of the first revelation, fear, you should have already had your book, you have your Dunes book, you read the first revelation, you read the first revelation commentary, and you answered the first revelation journal questions. If you have not done that, please go back and do that and then join us on this video. If you have done that, wow. So this week you identified your fear, and I just want to say bravo and wow. I am proud of you, and I knew that you would do it. And some of you, you were like, oh, please, Erin, I already know what my fear is. My fear is this. And it came to you really easy. Others of you had to do a little, dig a little deeper where you said, I put up a wall to people. I don't let people in. That's my action. But what is my fear? And you identified, okay, my fear is a fear of vulnerability. I may fear rejection. I may fear getting hurt if I let people get too close. I don't know what your fear, what you identified, what your fear is, but there are many out there. And so congratulations on identifying it. So let's do something about it. So as I shared a previous fear I had with you, and that's what I'm going to be working with you through. As I work through my fear, I'm going to share that journey with you. So we're working it out sort of at the same time. So I identified that my fear came from my skin, right? I had an issue with my skin, and an issue with your skin can make anybody self-conscious. Anybody, you could have, like I said, a lot of acne or discoloration, or maybe you're aging in a way that makes you feel self-conscious. Now, what I should have felt, or what I could have felt, what I had every right to feel, and what would have been normal to feel, would be to feel self-conscious. But I didn't feel self-conscious. I took it deeper, and it went into a place of shame for me, which, as I shared, is the lowest thing you can make your body feel, and which literally begins to slow down the way your cells heal themselves. So I had been in a prison that we talked about, and my prison was shame. I had gone from fear to shame because of the story that I had told myself surrounding my fear. So I want to talk about, because this week is about the root cause. Now, as I said, I identified my fear. My fear was fear of being rejected. Well, the root is fear of being rejected. My identified fear was that people would think I was ugly and then therefore reject me. So I want to teach you a little something. Neurologists who study the brain have found that when we have a memory, what we have is called a neural pathway, right? So you're thinking something in your brain, and you think it many times, and you think it enough, it becomes a neural pathway. That's why those of us who drive can sometimes get in a car and drive, and you end up at your destination, but you don't remember getting there. You don't remember the drive there. That's because in your brain, you have already formed a neural pathway on a destination that you drive to all the time. And so you can do it on automatic. That just shows how powerful our brains are. Your brain's like, go to sleep, self-conscious. You're in your conscious mind, I got this. And your subconscious literally drives you home, that kind of thing. Of course you were present. Of course you saw things, but you don't remember it because it is a neural pathway, that thought and that road that you travel, that map that you already know in your brain is already there in your neural pathway. So you're able to get there without much effort. That unfortunately also happens when we have a trauma or a fear response. So what happens is you have an incident, and this is where we're getting to now. So we did the I in my IRO method. We identified the fear. Now we're going to talk about the root of this fear, because as I shared, until you pull something out by the roots, now I'm going to gardening, right? Until you pull something out by the roots, it will continue to grow. So we're going to pull whatever that the root of your fear is, we're going to pull it out so it does not continue to grow, so you can develop a new neural pathway and get over that and overcome it. So the thing is, have you ever heard the saying that it takes 30 days to develop a new habit. Well, they got that from the scientists who have neurologists who have studied the brain, and it takes 30 days to develop a new neural pathway, a new way of thinking, to change your mind about something. So it is possible to do, and that's what we are going to do together. So when you, like I said, have something happen to you, maybe it was traumatic, it happened when you were a child, maybe it happened when you were an adult. We're going to get to that. So it happened. You told yourself a story about it, especially if it happened when you were a child, because as children, we don't know enough yet to reason through things. If somebody tells us something that's negative, we don't know it's because that person is hurt and in pain and they're lashing out. We don't know the difference between that when we're kids. We just take what this adult or whoever said to us as truth. So you tell yourself a story as a child. So if somebody was abusive or used abusive language towards you and said demeaning things or talked down to you, you began to believe that. It's still a fear response. You're responding to the fear of what they're saying. Is this true? Is this true about me? You're telling yourself a story that I'm not good enough. I don't have worth. I don't have value. And it creates a neural pathway. So then when you're an adult and somebody triggers that thing, you go straight to what that neural pathway has always been and that has been for years that you developed when you were a kid, and you start beginning to think those things. So when that happened with my face, instead of me going like, this is not a good look, I feel a little self-conscious right now, it instead went to the neural pathway that I had already created that said, oh, this happens. This makes me feel like I don't have worth. I don't have value. Now I'm going to be rejected. So that was the neural pathway that was already there, ready, saying, give me some information. I want to process it for you. What? This happened. Okay, well, this means you don't have worth, you don't have value, you're about to be rejected. Because that's the story that I told myself based on the event that happened when I was a child, based on the traumatic event that created a fear response, that developed a neural pathway that when I was an adult, with anything that triggered it, I began to just think that same thing over and over again. And we all do it. And it's easy to do because the neural pathway is already there. The thought pattern is already there. That's why you hear people saying you have to tell yourself a new story or change your mind, be renewed in your mind, because it's our mind that we have to reprogram and challenge to think a different thing. So we're going to learn to tell ourselves a new story, because sometimes we get attached and married to our own story and our own, not our own story, our old story. We get attached and married to our old story, and our old story is that same trauma response with that neural pathway that just begins to go to work in our brains. So I want to give you an example. I have a girlfriend who was raised upper middle class, and she had a father who loved her very much, but he hoarded money. He was extremely frugal. So I would say to the extreme, to the negative extreme. He hoarded it so much that instead of giving them presents on Christmas, he would wait until the day after Christmas to go then to the stores and buy presents and bring them home to them, because then the presents would be cheaper. Now, some people might think that's no big deal, but as a child and you're seeing that, it's giving you a skewed view of money. It's making money all important, and it's making money something that should be hoarded, because you can't buy it on this day to give this present. You have to wait until it's cheaper because money is all important. So she began this really unhealthy thought process about money, which began in her home because her father hoarded money and made her feel like, you got to wait. Everything has to wait, even when they had the money. This isn't somebody who came from a working class family who was always counting every penny. This is somebody who was upper middle class and had more than enough money to do the shopping and to do the things, but still had a fear of losing money, and he taught that fear to his daughter. So when she grew up and she had a business with her husband, and when they went through financial trouble, financial trouble is always challenging to deal with. For her, it devastated her and took her out because she became so fearful and nervous all the time that money was leaving, and what were they going to do, and money, money, money. And so because she's my friend, I worked with her and we figured out that the root cause was this thing that happened to her all during growing up. And so she had created a neural pathway that money was all important and it should be hoarded and kept to the side and never really spent. And because if it ran out, you were going to be in trouble. She never, even growing up, they never ran out of money. She never wanted for anything. She got to go to the college of her dreams and got a job fresh out of college where she made almost six figures, but still she had this fear, this unimaginable fear of always losing money. So she had a fear of lack, really. And it came because, like I said, her father created this atmosphere growing up where they hoarded money and there was always a fear of money, and I would dare say idolized it, because anytime you think that much of money, you've made it an idol where it has to be protected, and I have to put it over here, and you know what I mean. Anytime you're scared and there's fear associated to that thing, then it's become an idol that you need to get rid of because you are creating something very unhealthy. So as an adult, she had a very unhealthy response to money that she had to work through. And she's a Christian too, so we prayed together, we recognized the root cause, and she began to just surrender and release that fear of money. And it challenged her for a season because they actually, in her business that she had with her husband, went through a very, very, very challenging season. But in the end, when she did the emotional work, she went through the dunes with me and she did the emotional work. By the end, she just was free. She was free from that thing. And so that's what's going to happen for you too. So I want to share with you what happened to me when I was younger that created my fear response and my thing of my neural pathway feeling that I would be rejected. Actually, let's share it on the next video. So give me a second and we're going to go to that.